Now, I've been mostly staying out of touch with the like D&D 5th edition, 5.5E, whatever we want to call it, updates, mostly over the summer, just kind of taking some time to focus on real life stuff. But this one came out and I did go over it on stream, but there was something about the Arcane Archer that in particular kind of grabbed me, because I felt like we've seen this one enough, like we've seen the subclass in 5th edition enough, and know that there's some issues with it in operation, despite the fact that Wizards of the Coast is releasing another version of it that doesn't really seem to do all that much to address some of the really common complaints. I've documented some of these and actually done my own take on the Arcane Archer that I directly tried to address some of these concerns and brought up a couple of my own. Let's go talk about that real quick. And this isn't my version of the Arcane Archer, which you can see down below in the description, totally free. If you want to support me, go check out my Patreon or pick up some of my other stuff over on the Land of the Blind storefront. But getting into this one right here, the Arcane Archer, I think over the years, as I've noticed, at least what the community has been saying, and kind of my own problems that I saw with the Unearthed Arcana, I've kind of compiled into this list of design notes before you even touch my remix. So this version of the Arcane Archer addresses a few common complaints levied at the subclass and a few of my own. So number one, it lacked the resources needed to make its features feel reliable and useful. The refreshes on Arcane Shot, Arcane Archer is, it kind of implies the fact that it wants to be a spellcaster, but it's really not. If anything, it's kind of using the Battlemaster chassis in a way to make magical effects. But then that's really weird because like the Battlemaster chassis doesn't really keep up one for one with what resource output the like Eldritch Knight and the Arcane Trickster are going to get. So there's this kind of perception issue, right? I don't really try to compare the Arcane Archer too much to Eldritch Knight and Arcane Trickster because their resources are only refreshing on a long rest, and the Arcane Archer was getting them on a short or long rest. Now, I've seen another spellcaster try to do what is essentially like Warlock spell slot leveling in a way like this, and that was with Matt Mercer's Profane Soul Bloodhunter. I don't necessarily think that that was the route to go with over here because I think that you can just match it up to the Battlemaster and get a pretty good, you can get pretty close to what they were aiming to do by still giving it some more resources in here. Now, I kind of include more of that here in this write-up here, but we'll get into that here in a second. Second most common criticism I usually hear, it lacks versatility for build diversity and is generally a multiple ability score dependent option. Most people, whenever they pick up a fighter, they are prioritizing constitution and either dexterity or strength. And then suddenly whenever you go and you get a magical option on top of that, like the Eldritch Knight, suddenly you've got another ability score to worry about here. And you're kind of thinking, oh, okay, well, instead of 3, I'm now having to think about 4. And it feels like I'm just not getting enough dished out to really invest into all that. This is less so a big issue on later level fighters, but it still hurts the early level fighter. However, I do think that with the Arcane Archer, it's supposed to be a backliner. So your constitution score shouldn't really be a thing that you're prioritizing super heavily over dexterity and intelligence. You're not going to worry about strength at all, so we're just kind of nixing that right there. You're going to know as a fighter whether or not you're pathing into your damage output being strength or dexterity. But whenever we throw this on top of it right here and we have wisdom or intelligence, that's where we get a little bit murky. The way that I'm going to recommend building any Arcane Archer is you've got to think of it like a backliner. As a result, don't prioritize your constitution, go high into dex, and then if you know that you're going to pick up Arcane Archer, go into intelligence, or if you're going to use my rewrite here, go over into intelligence or wisdom. 3, it was too limited on Arcane Shot options, and I should really kind of clarify this. What I mean by this is Arcane Shot's known, right? Your overall palette of these quote-unquote spells that you can use was pretty small overall, and if I'm using the comparison of these to like the Battlemaster's maneuvers, you're actually getting almost half what the Battlemaster is getting. So the way that I just opened that up was you just gain them at the same kind of path that the Battlemaster does. You're getting 2 options there at levels 7, 10, and 15. 4, and this is one of my own, the backline playstyle for the subclass isn't reinforced defensively until its later levels of play. Whenever we look over here at the Arcane Archer, really the first backline feature that is defensive isn't really coming online until about 15th level. If you're in the backline, you're trying to stay as far away from an enemy as you possibly can, and you are most likely going to be just popping off shots from far and just trying to avoid any of the melees getting up into close combat with you. Unfortunately, the only real thing that I see that kind of adds a defensive feature for them until about 15th level is probably specific arcane shots. So like banishing shot kind of makes sense. But if they're already up there and engaged with you, then like you're going to have disadvantage on these attack rolls anyways. So I felt like it needed something that was reinforcing its defensive identity at least online by level 7. And it's got 2 of these defensive abilities that don't kick on until level 15 and level 18. And quite honestly, the level 18 capstone is cool. It's very cool, but it's really late for this to kick on. And yeah, also this not really relying on a reaction, because then that would be competing for masterful shots over here. It just felt a little bit clunky, and I think that there's an easier way to really achieve this. Number 5, the subclass was clunky. The features have synergy, but there was a notable lack of restraint on the word count. This version aims to reduce the bloat and build in more synergies that didn't previously exist. In a lot of cases, what I prefer whenever I'm designing a subclass or class or whatever for a TTRPG, I'm looking for more yes and design, not like yes but. I generally don't like a lot of tracking heavy features like this right here. This immediately adds some clunk. We have a whole other paragraph just about how it refreshes. There's a lot of stuff in here that I think this is adding bloat onto the subclass that maybe we could handle in a different way. I do like the restraint shown in ones like Ever Ready Shot. I think that this is pretty fantastic, but this is also kind of apologizing for a feature that was given to you earlier on the... I think that this could actually be given to you as early as 3rd level, and this would... keep you using the resource that the subclass you took really tried to push you to take. I really think that any subclass, any character option you take in a game should be giving you the tools to make you go, yes, I want to use this, not I have to be really careful about when I get to use this, right? Now, that doesn't just mean that, we give you all the power up front and say this is everything you can ever do. We do show some restraint. And maybe in a situation like this, we can kind of reel it back in to where, when you roll initiative, you regain 1 use of arcane shot. These options are cool, but in all reality, whenever you're able to optimally use a short rest, you're getting all expended uses of this for every single combat. So again, that's just saying optimally, whenever we're designing a feature for 5th edition and we're thinking about a shorter long rest refresh, we're honestly kind of saying we want you to have that ability available to you at least once per combat. You should be able to get the resources for that back after a combat has ended by some means. If we are resting optimally, then that's what's going to happen. So I think whenever it says when you roll initiative, you regain 1 use of arcane shot, I don't think that this is a great 10th level feature. I think that this could get moved over here, and you're going to be a lot happier with the, number 1, the resource limitations on here, but number 2, you're going to feel happier playing this subclass because you're going to be able to use the subclass. In addition to that, some of this clunkiness just comes from the way that they write 5th edition text these days. I did try to edit it down a little bit more, and I tried to open up that versatility like I was saying, but again, I think that there's some features like this with magical ammunition that's just... there's just too much happening in here. While these are way more interesting if handled as different arcane shot options that you could choose to take, since we give you the ability to take more arcane shots, these don't feel like they're necessarily eating up too much. Right now, it feels like they're eating up power budget in the subclass, whereas if we move them out in a way, they become an option that you can take that if you don't want that stuff, it doesn't feel like it's really eating away at your power budget. And number 6, this is one I didn't really realize until I looked at the Unearthed Arcana. Their utility is locked behind level 7. What I mean by that is there's a really cool ability that they did come up with that I was just kind of talking about with these different magical ammunitions. While cool, I mean, the Vine Shot itself is sick. Unlocking Shot, being able to use knock and knock from an arrow is sick. Darkening Shot is disgustingly cool. These do feel like they should be options that you should be able to tap into at 3rd level. by just knocking these down over into shot options and giving you the ability to take 3 shot options instead of 2 here at 3rd level. I don't know, that feels kind of odd. The big perk to this right now is that these don't use a use of your arcane shot feature, but they use a second resource over here that you can also restore by using second wind. So we have more tracking involved with this that I would like to figure out a way to reduce rather than add a whole other feature that we have to track how it refreshes. This is, again, kind of one of my big issues I take with D&D 5th edition's design philosophies. There's already tons of looks at this thing. You can even look at my first look at this one from a live stream the other day, so I won't be going into the actual Arcane Archer Unearthed Arcana here. I'm just going to go over to what I did in my revision, and you guys can access this one if you want. I just like to do this stuff as kind of like design exercises, a little bit of study and research here. Kind of keep my brain moldable, I guess you could say. So, my Arcane Archer. I just want to talk real quick. 3rd level, I'll kind of talk about why I designed the features this way. You learn magical theory and secrets of nature, granting you the following benefits. Cantrips, you now know 2 cantrips from either the druid or wizard spell lists. Your spellcasting ability for them is either intelligence or wisdom, your choice. I just wanted to open up the flexibility in there. If you go ranger and you decide that this is some other stuff that you want to tap into over here, this doesn't really kill your build for that multi-classing idea. If you do go into this and decide maybe you want to go into ranger instead for maybe some story purposes or just generally whatever, this will still open itself up to you to where it's not going to completely kill your build for really no reason. If we're saying that this is like the Arcane Archer and they're going to go that hyper-specific into it, I think that they should probably like open it up and not really do Arcane as the name. Again, I like opening up build potential, not restricting it, despite what a lot of people might say about my views on D&D. Anyways, skills, this was untouched. This is just the same thing. It's totally fine. I did find it kind of odd that they allowed you to take nature or like druidcraft in the cantrips, but they didn't allow you to use wisdom as a spellcasting ability. I guess their thought on that might be, well, if they want to play that, they should just go do ranger, but you're gated off from taking some really cool ideas here for what it could mean to be an archer in the game. I don't know. I try wrapping my mind around some of their design decisions and it just doesn't really click. Arcane shot. So I actually upped this to be 3 arcane shots, and this is reducing the word bloat here. I removed the word options wherever I could. Arcane shot options, that additional word cut out, I think about 20 to 30 words in this entire document, saves you about 2 or 3 lines of text. So reducing word bloat there. Now you're learning 2 additional arcane shots of your choice. This is keeping up with the Battle Master's maneuver count when it's getting them at 7th, 10th, and 15th. And also whenever you finish a long rest, you can replace an arcane shot with a different one, rather than doing this whole, whenever you get a new arcane shot, you can replace one with a different one. It's really odd that in 5.5, they were opening up so much like prep casting stuff to allow you to swap out stuff you took and you don't necessarily like whenever you're doing it in play. And then there's still options that say like, you can't change this until you like level up or whatever. Using arcane shot. Once per turn, when you make a ranged attack using a weapon with the ammunition property, remember this part, once per turn, okay? Because this is going to be another thing that I tweak here later. You can decide to use the arcane shot when you hit a creature and deal its damage to it, unless the arcane shot doesn't involve an attack roll, yada, yada, yada. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your intelligence or wisdom modifier, your choice minimum of once. You regain expended uses of it, you regain 1 expended use of it when you roll initiative. So I moved the roll 10th level down to here. And you regain all expended uses of it when you finish a short or long rest. I want you to continue using this stuff. I really do. I think that if you're taking a subclass option that is doing something that is specialized like this, you're going to want to be able to use it. And there is nothing that sucks more than investing something into your character build and you get into a combat and you just straight up don't have a subclass because you don't have these arcane shots or whatever. That's why I've done this over here. The number one thing that makes that real bad feel is adding a lot of tracking into, like, resource tracking into your subclass option. So that's why I've tried to make it easier to do the refresh a lot earlier. Arcane shot die, I just decided to simplify this text a bit more and combine two of their paragraphs together. Arcane shots refer to your arcane shot die, which is a D6, which changes as you reach certain fighter levels, becoming a D8 at level 10, D10 at level 15, and a D12 at level 18. Saving throws, this is now it's working off of intelligence or wisdom, opening up the versatility like I mentioned earlier. Level 7, what we've done here. Fail not is new. If you use an arcane shot and deal no damage with it, you regain that use of arcane shot. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. You can also restore your use of this feature by expending a use of your second wind, no action required. This is taking magical ammunition right here, this text, and basically saying, I recognized that these were not tied to arcane shot uses, right? This is something that is different, but you can only do this once per short or long rest or by spending second wind. I wanted to open it up a bit more and make it to where if it doesn't deal damage, you can regain that use of the arcane shot. All those old ones have been put down here into the arcane shots. You've got blind shot right here, unlocking shot right here, and then the darkening shot. You got that right over here. I also simplified their text. This is just the effects of the darkness spell. This is the effects of the knock spell. This just literally tried to clean this text up a bit. Yeah, that is everything I tried to give them for their level 7. Their level 10 twin shot. You can use your arcane shots up to twice per turn. I get the idea that they wanted to keep, they thought that these were going to be spell level, like spell worthy, right? They are dealing the damage of your shot, like your attack, plus the arcane shot damage in some cases. Arcane Archer still felt like it had a pretty flat damage, like gradient overall. Again, like this is a draft. Someone could come up with something that makes it sound like this is absolutely absurd. But I will say, nothing's going to suck more than one of these things not working. You use a resource, and because of that failure, you can't do it again. This up here is supposed to help alleviate that. This right here makes it to where, okay, even if that did fail and you don't have that use, you can still do it again. Now, this also means, what if both of these hit? Am I just doing an insane amount of damage? Yeah, you're a backline blaster. Or, well, you're a backline striker. In some cases, you are a backline blaster, but blasters are really outdoing your damage output before L10, and they're not stuck to the fighter chassis, right? So if we're cutting back on the idea that, like, you have to prioritize into Constitution as much, you do have a D10 hit die, so you are a bit beefier than a lot of the other backliners, but still, you're mostly investing into dexterity and intelligence with this. I think giving you a bit of a damage spike right here is absolutely fine. And this is a little bit of a reliability spike to where your main class feature, if you're blowing uses of it, you still got it right here. And the one thing about this I'm not a huge fan of is the fact of whenever you roll initiative, you only get the one use of it. This is saying, well, you could use it twice per turn, and then you wouldn't necessarily be able to because you only got the one use of it. Manage your resources, do the short or long rest, right? I mean, yeah. Unnatural agility. This was originally their capstone. I felt like their capstone was just pretty much underwhelming as a capstone, and they still needed another really strong defensive ability here at 15th level for the upper tiers of play. One of the things that you'll probably notice right in here is that Arcane Burst is gone. That's because I turned that into a shot over here. You don't make an attack roll for the attack. Instead, you use a reaction to unleash an eruption of force while firing a shot into the air. Each creature of your choice within 10 feet of you must succeed on a strength saving throw or take force damage equal to one roll of your arcane shot die and be pushed 20 feet straight away from you. This over here is a defensive option that you can take pretty early on. Now you've got what was effectively their 10th or 15th level. You have that baked into a shot now. This is requiring a use of it. In general, I feel like you needed to have a bit more defensive stuff kick on earlier on. And I don't think that this is necessarily a massive use of the reaction whenever beforehand this was just tied into whenever you use Indomitable. This is more usable, not less. You have more control over how it's getting used. Now, you are competing with the reaction of what could be your 15th level ability right here, but this is always on for you, and this isn't because it's tied to your arcane shot uses. Either or, this is horde clear right here. This is single enemy like damage output. So when a creature you can see misses you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to move up to half your speed away from the attacker without provoking opportunity attacks. You can then make a ranged attack roll against the attacker as a part of this reaction if the attacker is within the weapon's range. This is a really cool ability. I feel like this is super cinematic for what it means to be an archer, but it kicked on too late for me. I still think here at level 15, there's even an argument to be made that this is still too late for this to get kicked on, and maybe there's a version of this in the future where I swap this with a level 10. I don't know, we'll see how the damage spike winds up turning out with that level 10, especially because I know that they're getting extra attack, like 2 extra attacks in addition to their 1 attack they already have at level 11. So natural or unnatural agility might go up to L10, twin shot might come down here. I don't know, we'll see in the future. All-Seeing Eye, this is a new capstone that I wrote for them. You have true sight out to 60 feet. One of the interesting things that I thought that they had in here was their seeking shot as a way for you to counter invisibility. I thought as an arcane archer, it made a lot of sense to give you something that was a big, like crazy capstone that kind of built off the idea of you being a very, very good archer, right? Even if something is invisible from you, it just doesn't benefit from it, right? That is sick. When you roll initiative, this distance is doubled for 1 minute or until you end your turn without having used an arcane shot. 120 feet of true sight. I think if there were any option in the game that should be able to get something like 120 feet of true sight, it should be the arcane archer. I would want this to be a huge reliability spike. You should be a major counter, and in some ways a little bit of a mage hunter here in a way. I felt like this capstone actually felt like the crazy moment. This felt like a huge, like maybe it doesn't look all that exciting because it's not a big power move, but this is always relevant for you in everything that you're doing. These were kind of my thoughts on the Arcane Archer. Again, like I'm not necessarily like running or playing a ton of D&D 5.5E. I've just spent so much time in my life designing for D&D 5th edition that whenever this came up on stream, I felt like I had to do something. I had to say something because I was like, there's too many issues I have with this Unearthed Arcana not to do something. And I don't like just complaining about it. I like to actually show, kind of show my proof of what I think it could be, rather than just saying, oh, this is bad and not giving any feedback. Yeah. So anyways, that's going to be it for this one. Let me know what you all think down in the comment section below. A huge shout out to my Patreon sponsors. Thank you all so much for helping keep the lights on around here and coffee in my blood. Y'all are absolute heroes. And hey, go pick up Vagabond. I have so many copies of this in my house right now, and the Basic Heroes Handbook. Core Rulebook is available right now for $40. You can get it with the PDF for $50. And right now we have a deal going on the Basic Heroes Handbook where you can pick this up for $9 instead of the $15 because we just got double the amount we were expecting. So yeah, if you want to check out some other games that aren't, so D&D centric, or maybe just get a different rule set going on for your table that you feel might open up your creativity instead of hinder it, come check out Vagabond. I appreciate you all. Anyways, that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy, and I will see you in the next one.